We begin this morning with our exclusive, Rachel Jeffs, the daughter of the most infamous polygamist sect leader in the United States, speaking out for the first time live right here in moments. Rachel is the child of a man who had nearly 80 wives, a man who married her off to become a sister wife herself at just 18, a man whose emotional and other abuse made the odds of Rachel escaping to freedom next to impossible. In a way, her story is almost familiar right now. Women everywhere these days are finding the courage to speak up about abuse by powerful men, but Rachel's life story is anything but common. Born into the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS, she was taught from infancy that she must obey. Obedience was everything, which makes her decision to be here today even more extraordinary. Many of us, including me, knew very little of the FLDS until a raid at their Texas compound back in 2008. Do you remember this? Look at these pictures. Remember this? We saw the images of the women in the pastel dresses with their hair swept up high, who looked like they were from some bygone era. The mothers cried as state officials removed their children from them. They were later returned. And the world wondered, why? Who are these people? The answer is complicated, and the relationships are complex. But at the heart of this mysterious group is the Jeffs family, including Father Warren and his favorite daughter, Rachel. The images look like something from a Hollywood film. Women in prairie dresses, homes that shun contemporary life, including television, popular music, the internet. No public schooling, no mingling with the outside world. For Rachel Jeffs, this was no movie. This was her life.
We were taught that the world was wicked. Everybody out here was just the most terrible people.
The FLDS, a radical offshoot of Mormonism that has been condemned by the traditional Mormon church, is perhaps best known for its practice of polygamy and for its leader, Rachel's father, Warren Jeffs. When you were growing up, generally, how many wives did your dad have at that time?
Till I was 7, Father only had 2 wives. And then after that, he got them just every few years. So by the time I was 18, he had at least 30 wives.
They call him the prophet, and what he says goes.
It was hard at first.
But Rachel says her father's rules got increasingly bizarre. She says he began banning certain foods, toys, even fun, that he forbade hugging and broke up families on a whim, and that his many brides were getting younger and younger. His followers, including Rachel, were not allowed to question him. But question she did, starting at age 8, when Rachel says things with Warren took a very dark turn, one she was unequipped to handle, one no child should have to face. Rachel Jeffs' new book is called Breaking Free: How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and My Father, Warren Jeffs. And she joins me now for her first live television interview. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that people may not know is you had, in many cases, a happy childhood.
Yeah.
How can that be? What was happy about it?
We did a lot of basic things that other kids did, like we had bikes, we played together. Having lots of siblings was fun because you just had lots of friends. And in that way, it was really enjoyable. We did programs, we sang together, we went to the parks, we played, we had lots of fun
You
times.
weren't allowed to have a lot of contact with sort of the outside world, right?
No, yeah, we were taught they were very wicked.
Wicked. And so if you broke a leg, what would you do? Could you go to the hospital?
If Father said, a broken bone generally, but for the most part, if we got sick at all, no, we didn't go to the doctor or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And no music, no Madonna, none of that?
No, just music we made ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That was all that was allowed.
Talk about the need to, quote, keep sweet.
We were told we had to keep sweet. That's how we kept Heavenly Father's spirit. That's what we were taught. That we couldn't get angry or mad or jealous of anybody. We were just supposed to be submissive and sweet.
So it's not that you couldn't express anger. That was not allowed. You were not even allowed to feel anger.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what?
Or else you get punished. Either, you for sure get gotten after by your priesthood head, your father, or the prophet. it just wasn't allowed. You just have to be sweet all the time.
How many years did you go to school?
Till I was in 8th grade.
8th grade. And who taught you?
Father was the principal. We just went to a church school, learned the basic subjects, but especially priesthood subjects. The church teachings were paramount in that school.
There came a time when you were 8 years old when your relationship with him changed. He called you into his office. What happened?
Very shockingly, Father started abusing me sexually. I mean, first presenting what a man looked like, and then to me as a child, and then he started sexually abusing me as a young child, and it was so against his teachings, so against what he had taught us. I didn't even know what to think, and I just felt terrible. I didn't know why he was doing it.
How many times did he abuse you?
Way more times than I can count.
Did you ever tell anyone?
I told my mother when I was about 10, after it was just getting so bad, and I just felt like I couldn't handle it anymore. I remember thinking, if my father's doing this and the world's wicked, or the world father's even worse than this, you know? I mean, I remember thinking, well, I guess I should just be grateful that it's only this bad, you know? But yeah, I told my mom, and she confronted him, but it kept happening.
She was under orders to keep sweet too.
And obey him.
So after your mother confronted him, the abuse continued?
Yeah, didn't stop.
I understand he would take you into bookstores and show you pornography?
Yes. Yeah, as a very young child, he'd take me in there, and he'd either sit me in the children's section and then bring a book over and force me to look at pictures of pornography.
Ultimately, you got the courage to confront him in a letter and told him he had hurt you. Did it continue after that? You were 16.
No. After I confronted him and let him know how I felt about it, I was shocked. His reaction was one of defeat. I'm sorry. You know, that's what he said.
You weren't used to hearing that from him.
No, it was a totally different father than I ever knew.
And then within 2 years, you got news that you were being married off.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I expected it. I mean, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that I had no choice who it would be. I knew it would be his choice.
So one day he sits you down, and what does he say?
He comes home and he says, Rachel, you're getting married to this man, Richard Allred. And you know, that I guess my first thought was, I'm glad it's a young man. I was afraid I was going to marry a really old guy because we just had no choice. I mean, I was just grateful it was a young man.
Did he have any other wives?
Yeah, he had 2 wives before me, so.
Did you get to meet him before you married him?
I got to meet him the day before, yeah.
Were you scared?
I was very, very scared. Like, I was shaken. I was very scared.
So you go, it's your wedding day, the next day.
Yeah.
You walk down the aisle. Your dad gave you some advice for what you should do on the wedding night. What did he say?
The morning of the wedding, he said, Rachel, come talk to me. And I went in his office, and he said, I want you to ask for a baby tonight. I want you to ask your husband for a baby tonight. I want you to get close fast. And I had a hard time. I was like, do I have to? And he's like, yes, I want you to do this. Promise me. And I didn't ask him. I wasn't ready. But when I did ask him, I said, Father told me to ask you because I wasn't ready. And he was kind. He was like, he wasn't in a rush. He was nice to me. He was a lot different than my father.
But life as a sister wife would be full of other complications for Rachel and for the sister wives as well. And that's where we're going to pick it up right after this break when we have more with Rachel Jeffs. And we're back now with Rachel Jeffs, the courageous daughter of Warren Jeffs, who, after years of living a life of obedience, broke free of Warren Jeffs and the church he controlled. So life as a sister wife was what?
It was difficult. A lot of jealousy and bad feelings. you want your husband to be your best friend, but you feel like he's always turning against you and going and being somebody else's friend, you know. You just feel like you always want him to prove his love to you because you feel like he's is trying to love so many women at the same time. And at the same time, my sister wives did not enjoy me coming into the family.
You're the daughter of the so-called prophet, so she has an elevated status in the group.
Yeah, and so they felt like my husband loved me more than them, and so they treated me badly, and I didn't blame them in a way. I knew that would be hard. I mean, and I even learned later after my husband got more wives that it was difficult to have more wives come in the family and just have him sleep with all of them, have kids by all of them, you know, and it's just...
How many times a week did you sleep with him? In the same bed with him?
It could be up to 3 months before I would sleep with him, depending on if I was pregnant or not. I mean, you know, because he couldn't have sex with his pregnant wives, so...
That was a rule.
Yeah, that was a rule, so you just never knew. It was
I just ask you, I assume in the bedroom, things were one way only. Like, it was not about you.
Oh, very much. I think that's how polygamous men are because they're so used to just pleasing themselves. They're like the king in the house. Mm-hmm. And the wives are just their servants.
Meanwhile, the king of the FLDS, Warren, was having serious legal troubles as the cops got wind of his predilection for young girls, and he found himself a wanted man. While Rachel Jeffs settled into life as a sister wife and new mother, her father, Warren, was fleeing authorities. He'd been charged as an accomplice to the rape of a minor, stemming from an underage marriage he had arranged, landing him on the FBI's most wanted list. Authorities eventually caught Jeffs during a routine traffic stop outside Las Vegas, armed with a stash of wigs, cell phones, and more than $50,000 in cash. From the beginning, Jeffs professed his innocence.
I'm just a little boy in a jail cell. Didn't know I could make any trouble like that.
Jeffs was convicted, but the verdict was overturned on a technicality. But the law was not done with Warren Jeffs, who was later convicted for sexually assaulting 2 of his underage wives in Texas, one age 12. Jeffs was sentenced to life in prison. But even behind bars, Rachel says Jeffs had total control of his followers, including Rachel. That's the incredible thing, is that even when he went to jail, you and the other followers still listened to him, right?
Yeah, from our very youngest years, we were taught that the prophet or the leader of the church could not do wrong, that he only did right, and we had to obey his every word. And we basically were told we couldn't even make a move without him telling us to do.
The time in prison seemed to take a toll on his mental well-being.
Yes.
And the edicts he would issue became more and more bizarre. What were some of the more bizarre ones?
It started with just our clothes had to be a lot more particular. Our food, we had to start eating certain ways. You know, don't eat squash, onions, cabbage, you know, just lots
milk.
Milk, potatoes, corn. It just, you know, it slowly went along. He'd tell us more and more strict rules to follow, the way we dress, the way we put on your right sleeve before your left sleeve, you know, just so detailed of directives. And then he started sending really harsh punishments to everyone over assumed wrongs that they never committed.
Is it true that he would banish men in particular from the group, and also some women? I mean, you yourself were sent off to prison, essentially prison.
Yeah, he would decide that someone was guilty of a sin and then send them away forever or send them to live alone for long periods of time. And he sent me away from my kids for up to 7 months at a time and to live alone, and just accusing me of having sex when I was pregnant when actually my husband never would have sex with his pregnant wives. Mm-hmm. And the more I said we didn't, the more he accused us and kept me alone longer and longer. And during that time, I never got to hear from my kids or see them or know how they were.
Is that what led you to your breaking point?
I was very angry. I was very angry at Father, and I was angry that he would do that to my kids, and I felt like he was punishing me for what he did to me. Like he was trying to break me and make me feel like I was worse than him. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't let myself go there. I knew he had done wrong, and I didn't want to let him break me.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.